Hello and welcome. You are watching Diplomatic Corner here at AMN. I am Alin Tamiskin with the program. Today, as you know, African leaders and the mayors of different African cities are here to attend Early Childhood Development Initiative program taking place here in Addis Ababa. So I am sitting with Health Minister of Sierra Leone and we'll be discussing about the relationship between the two countries and the cooperation that is taking place between the countries. So stay with us. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Would you make introduction of yourself and your occupation as well?
I am Dr. Austin Demi. I am the Minister of Health for Sierra Leone.
What is the nature of the program and how it's been 4 or 5 days you came to Addis to attend this program. So how did you find Addis Ababa city? Is it your first time?
No, I've been here multiple times, but I think this is the first time I'm here to talk about early childhood development, and it has just been amazing. I'm just really impressed by the mayor's office. I'm impressed by the communities being served. I'm impressed by the program of early childhood development here in Addis Ababa. As you know, a lot of countries in Africa are focusing now on investment in the human being, investment in the person. As you know, this is the time for the African continent. We've got an incredible youth population. We've got sun, we've got water, we've got all of the ingredients of catapulting Africa into a new realm. And I think that starts with what you do with young children before they're born and during the early stages of their development. So it was great to be here to just see what Ethiopia has done around the comprehensive nature of early childhood development.
Before discussing other staff, I just want you to tell us the cooperation that is existing between Sierra Leone and Ethiopia. Just give us a briefing.
Sierra Leone and Ethiopia have long ties from independence, from our affiliation with the former OAU and the African Union. But more recently, during the Ebola outbreak in Sierra Leone, Ethiopia was one of the countries that sent 700 healthcare workers to help us fight that outbreak. So we've since had a very strong relationship with Ethiopia. It's mutually strong, it's mutually supportive, and I'm glad to be here today to further intensify that relationship.
How about the cooperation in health between the two countries? You just tried to mention the recent assistance that Ethiopia provided to your country, and how about the previous cooperation?
Well, again, I'm the Minister of Health of Sierra Leone, and so I'll focus a lot more on the health sector. And so through first the African Union being present here in Ethiopia provides an opportunity for both bilateral relationships and multilateral relationships. The fact that the Africa CDC is home here in Addis provides the added layer of the whole continent of Africa looking to Ethiopia for the nexus, the center of all of our activities around health security. So we've had a historical relationship with Ethiopia, and it's getting stronger by the day in the health sector.
It seems to be, African countries are more inspired to cooperate with one another in different sectors. There is no such a thing before, actually. What is the reason behind for this greater cooperation among African countries nowadays?
I think it's an Africa Renaissance that's actually happening right under our noses, because we strongly believe that Africa's prosperity is going to be built on Africa and Africa ourselves. And it's taking our own destiny in our hands. And it's also reminding us to build the Africa that we want. And I think Ethiopia has always been the center of that. We saw that you didn't even have to have a liberation struggle. You resisted colonialism and you fought against the external oppressors and stood your ground. And for me, just going to the Adwa Museum over the past few days was really just enlightening. And I think for us in the rest of the continent, we look to Ethiopia for a stronger South-South relationship. We look to Ethiopia for stronger collaboration. We look for expertise sharing amongst ourselves. And we look for supporting each other, not only in the health sector, but in this emerging space, focusing on early childhood development as a good example. Because if you're going to build this future, this African future that we're dreaming of, it starts with getting the foundations right. It starts with ensuring that young people are developmentally ready to start school. Because I think what happens is between 0 and 5 or 6, that's when the brain really matures. That's when all of the synapses are connected. And if you have a failure in ensuring that the physical, the cognitive, the emotional, the social parameters around development are not in place, you will struggle with the rest of life. So again, being able to see how Ethiopia has been able to tackle that comprehensively is an inspiration to the rest of the continent.
Speaking of United Africa, how Ethiopia played, I just want you to remind us the previous role Ethiopia played and the current, responsibility the country is executing to unite countries in Africa and make the continent prosperous.
Yeah. I think I will first look at a national perspective of it and the international perspective. Again, just being out here today and looking at the early childhood development and building the social fabric of unity, of bringing a country together with multiple cultures and multiple traditions, being able to teach the young ones to accommodate each other, to respect each other, to respect each other's cultures, is not only good for Ethiopia, it's something that the whole world needs to emulate, and especially in the African continent. So those foundational blocks were very, very impressive. And I think over the years we've seen, especially going back to the Adwa Museum that I was just at, how much investment has been done in this to showcase what a proud people of Ethiopia are, and to be able to see how this should inspire not only young Ethiopians who are walking through the museum to see their heroes, but to also see how Africa could lean on Ethiopia and build on that self-reliance, that feeling of we could stand up on our own motivation, on our own strength, and if we're committed to do so. So it's an inspiration. It's an inspiration for the current generation in Ethiopia, but I think it's also an inspiration for the rest of the continent.
What do you think the future of Africa might be in every sector, in terms of politics, in terms of economy, in so many ways? What would be the future of Africa?
I am excited about what the future holds for Africa, because if you look at all of these other countries around the world, around the continent, they have a much older population that is slowly marching out with a much smaller proportion of young people. In Africa, we have a lot more young people. The average age of the African country is about 17 years. And so we have to take full advantage of the demographic dividends that comes with that. We see that there's an energy shift around the world where people are looking at renewable energy, including sunlight. We have an abundance of sunlight here in Africa. You're looking at water resources around the world. It's diminishing, it's overutilized. You still have a lot of water in Africa. You're looking at arable land in the rest of the world. It's shrinking considerably. We have an abundance of arable land. We have forest cover that's still available. So if you combine all of this, it's the recipe for growth and development. I think the major ingredient that we need to underscore is ensuring that we take advantage of what we have by very strong leadership, by very collaborative leadership, by bringing our people together, by creating opportunities for intracontinental trade, by bringing us together to share experiences and expertise within the continent and help build each other out. Because if we do, we will be the strongest continent in the world, and we're on the verge of that.
How this Pan-Africanism and African solutions for African problems, are being manifested practically around the continent?
Well, again, I am not an economist. Let me focus on the health side. In the past, when you have a medical crisis like an outbreak, what do? You call the US CDC or you call some other entities to come and assist us. Now we've created an Africa CDC that is headquartered here in Addis. The Africa CDC, Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, focuses on health security, which looks at preparedness, being able to prepare for these outbreaks, being able to respond adequately, being able to prevent these appropriately on a continent basis. And we hold each other accountable and responsible so that an outbreak in any one country, in the world, in the continent, is an outbreak for the whole continent, and we all rally around. I remember when we had the Ebola outbreak in West Africa in 2014, 2015, the world was scrambling. We were not ready for it. When you had a similar outbreak of Ebola in 2021 in Guinea, the whole of West Africa rallied around and showed solidarity with Guinea. We were able to shut down that outbreak in the shortest possible time. So again, these are things that we could do amongst ourselves. We're moving into the space where we don't have to depend on others to develop vaccines for us. We're looking at vaccine development capability. We're looking at a new cooperation between countries in Africa called the AMA, African Medicines Agency, that's been looking at how do we forecast our need, how do we produce our own products, how do we distribute our own products, how do we regulate our own products in the continent. So again, I think these are all illustrations in the health sector that portend a much broader focus on the renaissance of Africa.
Today's program strikes me that African countries are determined to stand on their own and instead of relying on other countries' experiences, because formerly African countries tend to go abroad and share other countries' experiences, but now they are here in the continent to share experiences of each other's country. What do you feel of it?
I think I feel great. Again, we don't want to create an isolated Africa. We want to be Africa to be a strong global partner, but we want to have a global partnership that's been built on mutual respect and mutual strength. So what we're doing is building an Africa that's strong enough such that when we encounter others, when we have opportunities to discuss global matters, we're doing it from a position of a peer with equal strength, if not greater strength. So it's an exciting time for Africa.
How about, it's been, you said you have always, many times come to Ethiopia and paid a visit to different developmental activities being undertaken here by the Addis Ababa City Administration, also by the federal government of Ethiopia. How do you evaluate the ongoing developmental endeavors here, especially in the city?
It's one word, it's foresight. I see clear foresight. I see clearly a nation on the move. I see clearly a nation that is very thoughtful, that's clear, that's strategic, that's deliberate in its actions. So it looks like a big construction site because there are buildings going up everywhere. There's civil works going on everywhere, expansion of roads, making clear sidewalks that are making the city smarter, making the city more accessible and usable, putting people at the center of urbanization. I think it's remarkable the progress that has been made over the past few years, and I am just looking forward to seeing how this evolves to the next step, because it's been very, very impressive. This is not a gradual progress. This is a country and a city that's moving in leaps and bounds. Very impressive.
How the Africa we want aspirations are realized, in the continent. What members of African continent should be doing to realize these aspirations?
Again,
with the help of the African Union agenda.
Yes. I think we have a collective African forum in the African Union. We have a collective Africa vision, but that vision is as good as what happens in individual countries. So all the individual countries are contributing towards the realization of that vision. And so what you see here in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, is a similar spirit that you see in a lot of the other countries, albeit that Addis Ababa's pace is a little faster than others, but I think we're all aspiring for a better continent, a stronger continent, and the strength of that continent is our cohesion as one big continent. And the functionality of that is going to be seen in individual countries. We're strong as a continent as the individual countries are strong.
What kind of activities are being implemented in your country, Sierra Leone, in terms of poverty alleviation program to alleviate poverty?
So Sierra Leone is a country that's endowed with mineral resources, extractive minerals, gold, diamond, rutile, iron, you name it, it's there. And for the past 40 years, we've been relying on these extractive minerals for our development. I think what the current government, the current administration led by His Excellency Brigadier Retired Dr. Julius Maada Bio has been focusing on building the people, investing in the people. And I think that's what we see here in Ethiopia as well, investing in the people. And I think for us in Sierra Leone, what we do is if you invest in people and have individuals be the best that they could be for themselves, for their families, for their neighborhoods, for their communities, for their districts, for their provinces, and for their country, you have the basic ingredient for building a continent. So that's what we see at work right now. We've invested very heavily in education, ensuring free quality education for both primary and secondary. And I think what we saw here today is what happens before they actually go into the school system, the preschool, the kindergarten experience. It's a major effort of ours. We're also focusing on healthcare because we want a very educated populace. As we have an educated populace, we want to have a healthy populace as well. And if you have an educated populace, a healthy populace, the next major ingredient is to have a food sufficient populace. So if you have these three, all you need now is the infrastructure to link them together. So we're doing all four of these together. And right now, for the first 5 years of His Excellency's reign, he was focused on these four critical elements. Now we're consolidating the gains there and emphasizing the food security component. with a program called Feeds Alone, and 4 other major components that will help us transition, looking at technology innovations, looking at employment for the youth, looking at reforming the administration of the government and civil service. All of which is to be able to empower and strengthen a people and create an environment for them to thrive.
Speaking of food self-sufficiency, how other countries, including your country, how other African countries are, striding towards attaining this great ambition, and how do you, suggest? What do you suggest about the ongoing food self-sufficiency mechanism being implemented here in Ethiopia? For example, wheat production is a typical example.
Yes. So food sufficiency for a country needs to be deliberate. In the past we thought that farming is for just people who didn't succeed in life, but clearly farming is the driver of a nation. And so what you see is not only expansion of our farming capability, but value addition to the farming capability we have. As I said before, we've got water, we've got arable land, we've got human capital. So if you combine all of this, we should be able to feed ourselves. And I think that's what you're seeing. It's no longer correct for somebody to be 8,000, 10,000 miles away, grow rice or grow wheat and send it to us to buy when we have all of what it takes to do it here. So what we're saying now is, let us do it here. Let us demonstrate that we could grow wheat here in Africa and support the wheat needs of the whole continent. We could grow rice here and support the rice needs. We could grow basic crops here. We could grow cash crops here. We could also add the value addition to it. I don't see cocoa beans growing in Belgium. I don't see cocoa beans growing in France. I see cocoa beans being grown here in Africa. I don't see coffee growing in Europe. They're grown here. Why don't we make it work here and add the value addition to it and make it a product that our people will be beneficiaries of these products? That's the transition that's taking place in Africa. And if people are paying attention, you see this on the move.
As you know, theft, corruption, and other related conducts are, the main reason for the backwardness of Africa. So how about the activities being, underway to fight against these activities?
Well, all of these things that I talked about is not going to proceed or progress if we have corruption and undercutting it. The price of corruption is very, very deep in our aspirations. And so there's a deliberacy now in all countries around Africa to make sure that we address this, we root it out. In my country, for example, there is a very, very active anti-corruption commission that's been established, and we're going after corrupt practices all over. And it's not just persecuting corrupt people or confiscating their products. We're also active in preventing corruption in the first place. We're also looking at how do you build internal controls that are able to help you detect this early, but also prevent it. So I think we're doing all of the right things. We need to pay attention to it. We have to be accountable to the people and have the freedom of the press and communications to be able to expose these ills when they occur, because they are undermining the fundamentals of where we want to go as a continent.
Do you see, last and but not least, do you see the ray of hope for strengthened Africa, and do you believe that Africa is on the right path towards prosperity and development?
I don't see a ray of hope. I see the opening of the clouds for Africa. I see a clear path, a clear horizon, a clear dawn of a new continent. And I am excited when I come into a place like Addis and see what the young people are doing. What the young African people are not going to accept yesterday. the young people are determined to be able to shape the Africa they want. So it's a very exciting time. I am not hopeful. I am excited about the prospects for this continent going forward.
Minister, thank you so very much indeed for being on our program. Thank you indeed.
It was my pleasure.
All right.
It was my pleasure.
All right.
Thank
Have
you
a
very
wonderful
much.
time here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, viewers, we hope you have enjoyed the program. Until we come up with other guests next week, many thanks for watching and goodbye for now.